Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Get Jashed. Today I'm so excited to have with me Megan Casserly. Megan is a mum of two girls, aged 11 and 5, has been a personal trainer and nutritionist for over 8 years and started specializing in coaching mums since 2017 after having her second child. Dance was Megan's first passion, and she brings that beautifully into her work by teaching young dancers strength training, which is super important. I know the importance of that as a yoga teacher, seeing especially dancers come in going, look at me, how flexible I am, and just having all of these other issues. So I'm so
Yeah.
grateful to have you joining me. Thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited too.
Awesome. To start, I don't know if this is like a drop you in the deep end kind of question or just like a leading question. Some people take it differently, but like to start, what is it like in your heart that drew you to working in fitness and nutrition? Like, was there a single moment or was it like a progressive realization for you?
Well, it's funny, I stumbled across a Year 5 report the other day, and I always had this story in my head that I was no good at school and that I was always in trouble, or I couldn't focus and concentrate and all that kind of. I was kind of like, the naughty girl in school wasn't for me. But I came across a Year 5 report the other day, and it actually said that I was really great at what's his Healthy Harold? I don't know if you've ever.
Oh
Do you
yeah,
remember
the
Healthy Harold?
giraffe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was very engaged and very focused and inquisitive when it came to the visits with Healthy Harold, and also anything to do with physical fitness. So when I stumbled across that, I was like, oh, okay, it was already there. I knew I wanted to be a dancer from a very young age. Like as soon as I could talk or walk or whatever, I was like, I'm going to be a dancer. I'm going to be a dancer. Mum, Dad, hurry up and put me in dancing. So that was always there, and anything physical, I would give a go. And so that was always, it seems to always have been implanted. My dad was a massive influence on me because he was physically fit, went to the gym all the time, had a great a gym habit, I should say. And he played soccer. He tried football for the first time in his 40s.
Oh my God,
so
that's amazing. Yeah.
Taught me how to ride a bike, would rollerblade with me to school.
Badly.
So anything that I wanted to give a go, he was my biggest encourager and my biggest fan.
Yeah.
I would have to say that it had always been there. And then when I moved to Dubbo from Sydney, I had to try and find, my jam. I had to find my place where I fitted into a small country town that everyone knew everyone and I was the outsider.
Oh, yeah.
So when I did that, I started doing classes, Les Mills classes. I started participating in those because that's what I knew from Sydney. That's what I used to do after work and stuff. And I would go to Les Mills and go to the gym, those classes. Always adored them because they took me back to dancing. It was choreographed, all that kind of thing. So when I came to Dubbo, I saw that one gym had the Les Mills classes. So I started doing that. And then I was like, oh, maybe I could teach something like, maybe I would be good at teaching. And it would be really cool to be on stage. So it kind of is like that when you're a group fitness instructor.
Yeah.
You're performing, you learn the choreography, and then you teach it to others and you have them follow you. So I had that little idea, but I also had like a massive confidence crush, I would actually say, when I moved from the city and into a small town. My confidence got shaken quite a fair bit. So I sort of dipped my toe into that and thought maybe I could do that, but then I didn't end up doing it. Then I stumbled across Pole Fitness came to town.
Yeah.
So this was a lady from Brisbane who came out to a small town and she opened up this business. And I was like, oh my goodness, I am definitely trying this. And I tried it for a few weeks. And then she was like, can you be a teacher here? So that's where my journey of instructing began and my confidence started to grow. And I was surrounded myself by like-minded people that too wanted to be strong and that wanted to, feel empowered by the tricks and all that kind of thing. So I started being a teacher there. And then when I was actually teaching conditioning classes, is what we would call it. So you'd have, your learning classes termly, and then you would have your conditioning classes. And I was like, well, I don't really know the ins and outs of the body and whether I'm teaching right. And I also wanted to cover myself too, like if I did anything wrong to someone. So I wanted to get qualified. So when I had my first baby, so I did pole dancing or pole instructing right up until Amira, my first child, was, I was like, I would have been like 7 months pregnant with her.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And I basically had to be kicked off the pole. Like my boss had said, okay, like enough's enough. You're going to have to, stop teaching now and rest. So I decided to do the Cert 3 and Cert 4 while I had a new baby because, once so just me. This is the kind you'll see as we talk about other things later. It's kind of like a pattern that I do. So I sort of, when I had my first baby and, everything sort of she got about 6 months or something. And then that's when I started to, I thought, well, I'm at home, so I could be studying while I'm at home, like while she's napping or, she's happy playing or whatever. So I started to do the Cert 3 and Cert 4 while Miri was still little, and then the nutrition side came a lot later because I also wanted to be able to look after my body and feed it properly, and then I also wanted to be able to feed my kids the right stuff as well. So I was passionate about the passion just sort of keeps extending. If that makes sense.
It's I find that in my work as well. Like it is a progressive journey. It's very much like you just have to start somewhere, and then you it sounds like you just followed your feet and found your way to where you're at now, but it wasn't necessarily like an exact knowing of this is exactly what I'm going to do right at the beginning. No. It was like hey, this is fun. I'm definitely going to do this. And then, okay, sure, I'll try that. And then, okay, like, babies. All right, cool. I'll study this. And like, I think that's a really cool testament to how the journey really is, especially like in the online world, like especially like on Instagram. Sometimes there can be the misconception that, like when people look up to people and they're like, that just all happened. It's like, no, it didn't. And I want to talk about confidence because you brought that up. But first, just for people listening, Healthy Harold is, for those of you who are not in Australia or not like old enough to Healthy Harold is, this is going to sound really seedy, it's a giraffe, like a giraffe puppet in a van that tells you,
in a
caravan at your school, that like in a dark van where you go in and sit there in a group, and he tells you how to like be healthy, like how to eat healthy, how to live healthy in a general way.
To about the human body and how the human body works and stuff too. And I was always fascinated with that. I was like, this is so cool. And it didn't matter, year after year we'd have Healthy Harold, and I'd be so excited.
I just loved going into the van. Because it looked like the way they had it set up was always like, it looked like there were like stars in the sky, but it was just the roof of the van. So just to fill in that gap, that's what Healthy Harold is. Google it. It's hilarious, but it's also amazing. But I want to talk about confidence, because you brought that up. You said you had to move from a city, like, so Sydney, but it's a big city, right? It's a huge city. Like you moved from Sydney to country New South Wales. So if anyone hasn't put together the dots, our last guest, Peter Brown, is Megan's fiance. So if you've listened to Pete's episode and heard him talk about Megan, this is Megan, or vice versa. If you go back, listen to Pete's after this. But so you moved to country New South Wales. What was the, like, aside from, I mean, you can involve work in it, but just on a personal level, what was the element of confidence there for you? Tell me more about that.
Okay, so yeah, when you do live in Sydney, it's such a huge place, and I was actually working in the city, so I was traveling. Even though I was in a little town in Western New South Wales, I was traveling into the city every day and to work, and there's just such a wide variety of people and open-mindedness and cultures, and I learned so much there, and I learned how to be open-minded and non-judgmental and all that sort of thing. And yeah, I had a lot of confidence because I was surrounded by such diverse people and acceptance. There was a lot of acceptance there. So, but I have to say that when I moved from the city into a country town, people are not accepting to you, and they can tell that you're an outsider straight away. Like I remember walking into a newsagent and they said, "Oh, you're not from around here, are you?" When I got served. Yeah.
It's like a line directly out of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, right? Like it's just like the line directly, like, "You're not from around here, are you?" No.
Like you can tell, am I wearing it on my head or I don't know. But I also got the job because I first of all, I was a dental assistant. So I was a dental assistant before I moved down here. So obviously my career changed before when I got pregnant and then afterwards as well. But yeah, so I went for an interview to move down here and I got the job on the spot, right? Because I just obviously oozed confidence, oozed that I could do this job, with my eyes closed, loved it. And I could bring a lot to, the dental surgery, not knowing that I was going from a 13 cubicle surgery to like maybe 2 surgeries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm overqualified for this.
Yeah, well, I had no idea until I walked into it. But I got the job on the spot in the city with the interview, right? So then by the time I got down here, the people that actually worked in the surgery did not like that. Did not like that they just said, cancel all the interviews in Dubbo. We found someone, she's moving from Sydney. So already they had their, prickles up. So they had already prejudged me before I got there. So when I was working in there was just a lot of, confidence shattering and squashing of my personality. So that happened.
Yeah.
Is that answer your question?
Wow.
So that is kind of bringing work into it.
Yeah. You can bring work into it, but like,
Yeah. So that's how I bring work into it, is because in that scenario where you're spending 8 hours a day with people that are not quite accepting of you and who you are, it was quite shattering, and it was a journey, and I'm still going on with this journey of who I actually am. Finding that. Who exactly I am.
I feel like that part is almost like a lifelong one in a way, but there is like this formative piece, especially when we have those moments of like confidence crushing, especially in the workplace. It's very, very much like the schoolyard, isn't it? Like it's very much like, oh, she's different, and then like
we
stories
don't like her.
Stories are made up
better than us, and
exactly. Like she's from the city and like
so we automatically don't like her. The other funny thing is, what was I going to say about that? I've lost it now, but
no, that's okay. Like, so with your journey then, like, what was there's so many questions I want to ask about this. What was the moment where you kind of realized that's what was happening within you? Like, where you're like, oh shit, my confidence is like shot right now.
It took me a long time to actually realize that my confidence was being shaken. And I had a lot of, emotional outbursts. And I had people like someone in particular around me telling me that it was me, and that I was the one that needed to be fixed and molded.
Super helpful, thank you.
So I had that around me as well. So this was just like, that's what I was going to say before, with the growing and the learning experience, to finding out who you are. I had to, when I was living in the city, I would never dream of going to the shopping centre by myself. Like I would either go with a bunch of friends or like my dad or whatever. Like you wouldn't go, or my sister, you wouldn't go to the shops and go shopping by yourself, or you wouldn't sit at a cafe and have a coffee by yourself. So through this journey, even though it was tough and my confidence got shattered, but it was kind of like it got shattered for me to rebuild myself. Because now, like years and years later, I've been here for 15 years. I love going shopping by myself. It's something that I actually, after 2 kids too, like
I
it's
bet.
that you dream about.
You're like, oh my God, this is a dream.
Yeah, when I come to Brisbane or if I go to Sydney or something, you know what I'd really like to do? Walk around the shops by myself. Whereas I was a little 20-year-old or 21-year-old, and I was like, oh, you can't walk it, like you have to try and find. And so that's, you know, like I did try to bend and mold and twist to try and find friends, because heaven forbid I'd walk around the shops and go shopping by myself. So I was trying to squash myself to then fit so I could find some friends to cling on to. Yeah.
It's so interesting. This is like, I was having a conversation with someone yesterday and we were talking about that, like who we were when we were 18, 19, 20, and why it's so jarring now to reflect back on it. And they asked me the question, like, what was it for you? Like, and I'm like, I wasn't allowing myself to value what it is that I value. And right. And it's, what would you, if you could talk to 20, 21-year-old Megan and just be like, hey, what's up? Like, what would be like a key thing, do you think, that you could say to her that would actually land, you know, like rather than the, oh, just trust, it's fine. Like what would actually land for her to hear, do you think?
I'm actually just getting a little bit emotional.
Oh, that's okay.
So I would actually tell her that, like, you are enough and that you are awesome.
Yeah.
And that you shouldn't have to squash for nobody.
And that's powerful to hear, especially at that age, like coming into
at
adulthood, 35,
right? You feel completely different. Sorry, someone's just trying to call me.
That's okay. Yeah, you're completely different, and you're still learning what it like. I feel like at 20, you're not a teenager, but you're like, I'm not an adult either.
And to get thrown into such a massive, you know, going from your partying stage where you go out to the, you know, you go out to the club with your friends and you dance and all that kind of thing, and then deciding that you're going to pack up and move to a small country town at such a young age and start over. I don't think I even comprehended what I was about to endure.
And it's huge as well, like understanding worth, especially when you're thrown in those situations where it beats you down to, like, we go through it, generally speaking, I'm going to generalize, but I feel pretty safe doing that in this instance, but like we go through that in school. Everyone would go through that in some way, like throughout their schooling, whether it's primary or secondary. Like it's all, there's this formation and then this reformation and then maybe another reformation again, right? Like of like, what is my worth? And sometimes it stays low until we're in our 20s or late 20s or whatever it is. But like, it's also this moment of reassessing those values again around that age and going, what, like, because we know something's wrong, right? Like, and you knew something, you like, even if you weren't necessarily as articulate at it as you are now, because you have the power of hindsight. Like generally when we're in those moments, like there is a sense of what is this, like this doesn't feel, but you're like, right, but I'm kind of just trekking through. Was that your experience?
And it was my experience, but it was also the experience of I thought there was something wrong with me and I had to fix me. So I had like, and that's sort of, you know, round into the journey of, you know, transformation after transformation. How can I
Yeah.
fix myself? How can I be better? How can I be a better version of me? Which is, there's nothing wrong with that. And
Oh
like,
yeah,
I'm
I think
forever
that's
grateful for
important.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, I didn't not question my self-worth as such, or find my self-worth until I had my first baby.
Really?
And
Wow.
yeah. So I was 24 when I was
Uh-huh.
pregnant with her and had her in the March, and then I was to turn 25 in the December. And she really gave me empowerment. She really gave me self-worth, and made me question so many things. And that's how I got into the career change and got the confidence in, like, I don't have to be a dental assistant / pole fitness instructor on the side. Maybe I could do this full time, and maybe I could really, lead people
Yeah.
and teach them, my passions and influence them.
Yeah, and I love having those realizations where you're like, oh, I could do this. This is
Yeah,
cool. Like,
yeah. I'm
tell
actually
me more.
really good at this.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me more about that moment. Like, again, it doesn't have to be a single moment, but like, tell me more about that process for you of like, oh, I'm a mum now. What's going through your head or your heart, like about all of that?
So yeah, when I became a mum, it really it wasn't just about me anymore. And, Dad was, like I said, Dad was a massive influence on me, and how he raised, like, he had a big integral part of raising me, taught me how to read, rollerblade, all that kind of thing, was with me all the time, every step of the way. So then I wanted to step into that role, and I wanted to help my kids, or Amira at the time, to be the best that she could be, and do everything in my possible way to raise her with so much love, so much confidence, so much empowerment. And she's a female, she's a girl. Like, it's massive. When you have a little girl, you're like, oh, what do I want to teach her, or how do I want to help her shape being a bit like better than how I was.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's such a motivating factor, right?
Yeah. So yeah, career change and also relationship change as well. I was like, oh, I actually really deserve a lot better. So I found my self-worth, and I also questioned, what am I teaching my daughter if I stay here and live someone else's life and not be true to myself and own my own truth?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the leading by example, which I love. Like, I'm like cheering on the inside about this because it's like, yeah, it is like, I'm not a parent yet, but like, we teach our kids, well, we teach kids around us, like I'm an auntie, but we teach the kids around us, like, what is okay to accept and what is okay to choose for ourselves by doing that for ourselves also. And that's really like, that's a core part of forming inherent values, like an inherent value system also.
Yeah. And when they grow old, when they're older, and then they think that, certain behaviors or habits or whatever is okay, or you can teach them that if you're in a situation that you're not 100% happy with, you can change that. You have a choice. Yeah.
What do you, in your experience as a mum so far, what do you feel like has been the most important part, or important part for, because you have two young girls, like the important part for young girls to understand about values and confidence and any of those things? What do you feel like has come up as a really important part of that?
Yeah, cool. So great question. Again, the self-worth, like knowing your self-worth and instilling that from such a young age. And I even love telling, like, I instill in the girls that if you don't like something that mummy has said or done, or, or even the way that we reprimand, or way that we speak to you or something like that, you have a voice, and that you can actually stand up and say to me, I actually felt this way, Mum, when you spoke to me like that, or I don't think that was fair, this is what I was trying to do. Like this, you know, you would totally get this because of communication. I tell those girls that they can communicate with us. If they don't like it, they do not have to sit there and bury themselves and just accept with what's going on. Like they have a say. I'm reading this awesome book. It's the Me epidemic.
Yeah,
and it's about like how to raise a well-grounded child in a over-entitled world. And so it says in there that we live in a democratic society now, you know, as well as in the home. It's no longer the man is at the head of the house and, you know, then it ricochets in the packing order. We all have a right to a voice, and we all have a say as a team. And that's how our family works, the four of us, is that, you know, if Amira's sitting there and we're telling her off about something, and if she goes like this, I say to her, you got something to say it. Like, let us know. And then we can communicate and we can exchange, okay, well, I didn't realise that that's what you were going to do, or that's what you were going to say, or, you know, Miri, when you spoke to me like that, the tone made me feel like you were being, you know, sassy or whatever. Yeah, but then she says, oh, actually, I wasn't trying to be sassy. I was joking, or, you know, I actually didn't mean that tone.
Yeah, there's so much in that as well. It's parents can apologize. Like there is a place for parents to apologize, and that is healthy for the relationship. It teaches the kids true empathy and true understanding of what apologies actually mean. Or what else? It's teaching both of them like how to use their voices by saying like, this is how it's making me feel. And it's also teaching them that they can clarify if something's been misunderstood. So if, like you said, like if you're like, it made me feel like you were being sassy, and she's like, oh, I wasn't trying
I didn't actually mean it like that.
It was a reaction. Like she may not have this language yet, but like it was a reaction. It was I didn't mean to be sassy. I just felt frustrated, or I felt something, right? Like, so it's this, but in all of that, there's this deepening of understanding in the relationship between the two of you, which is really beautiful and really, really powerful. And there's this space and ability and cultivation for her that she's been guided to cultivate her core values.
Yeah.
Which then allows her to find her self-worth. So like, it's not just this message that she hears of like, yeah, I get it, like self-worth. That's the embodiment of it, which is where it's all at. That's where we feel it, rather than just, you know, knowing it cognitively and then going, and then she'll have a moment, like, you know, maybe she has a moment like at work like you did when she's older, and then she's like, ah, shit, here it is. You know, like she's embodying it already.
Yeah, exactly. And knowing how to handle that better. So then when she goes out into the playground, or she goes to school and then she goes to work, she's got different ways and different skills and tools on how to handle it. And then also, if anything is going on, that communication line, she feels as though she can come in and say, hey, Mum, this is what's happened. You know, and I can ask her, do you want advice? Do you want me to just listen, or do you want me to do something about it? Like, I love that. That's gone around on Facebook before. It's when, you know, when your child opens up and tells you a problem, there's 3 questions you can ask them. And I think that goes for any relationship also, but yes, absolutely. Yeah, cool. Right? Right. And that's you know, Pete mentioned on your podcast before that our communication style has, you know, grown massively throughout the 8 years that we've been together as well. Yeah, and I think it's through parenting like that way as well.
I love those questions also, because it gives her agency.
Yes,
it gives her choice. Like, so she's more likely to come to you because she knows that there's a safe space. It's not like, oh, Mum's going to fly off the handle at this, or oh, she's going to overreact and take over, and you know, like, it won't be any of those stories. It'll just be, this is what I need, which then gives her the skills again to communicate that in other scenarios, in her relationships when she's older, in her workplace, in her wherever with her friends. Like, this is what I need.
Yes. And it prevents her from, because when I moved here and I got the confidence squashed and all that kind of thing, massive issues with my throat chakra where I had so I've got like turquoise on me right now, to help with that voice, because I just squashed myself so much that I lost my voice, I lost my truth. And I actually, like, going into all this, I actually went through a stage where if I spoke to someone and I had and I felt intimidated or I felt not confident, I started to go red and blotchy all along here. Yeah. So for the first few years of being here and feeling so it would be inadequate or like confidence pushing, whatever. Yeah, like my body was reacting because I wasn't I wasn't actually verbalizing how I felt.
I'm laughing because I pulled cards this morning and and one of them, I'll have to show you after, one of them is I will speak my truth.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that was for Megan. This was for this conversation. Because it happens, but it's like, there's so much work that can be done in expressing ourselves, and it shows up, like our body will show us whether it's through tension or through like rashes or splotchiness, right? Like there's something that it will show us. And so did you notice that and then consciously decide to, or was that just like in reflection where you're like, oh yeah, I did notice that, and then suddenly that's not there anymore because I've been doing this work?
Well, it was really weird because I was just like, what is going on with me? I've never been a person that's gone like red in speaking to people. I've always been like, I'm a dancer, so my head was always held high. I had this
cool, calm and collected.
And then I didn't understand what was happening to me. But I did go on a spiritual journey with that. I've always pulled cards and always been interested in that path. So I started getting kinesiology and I also had to go and see a psychologist down here to figure out what was wrong with me. And then that journey began. But I had one of my besties from Sydney come down once, and we started having this open conversation about how it was happening to her too. But she didn't move, but she told me that it was happening to her too. And so I suppose talking to someone else about it and being open about it, and us going, yeah, how weird is that? That's happening to me too. That sort of released it a bit as well.
Yeah,
it's normalized it.
It's the acknowledgement and the normalization of it that is really powerful, because so much of it is like, I'm wrong. I'm not fitting in. I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm doing the bad thing. I'm the broken one. I need to change. Yeah, when it's like the giving voice to it just acknowledges it. Even if you're not finding a solution as such, it's acknowledging it, which helps to release that. Do you think that there is a difference? Two-parter question. Do you think that there is a difference? And if so, what is the difference between like body confidence and self-confidence?
Yeah. So do you mean like self-confidence is like a mask and body confidence is that what you mean? Or
no, but it's interesting that came, like, that's how you perceived it that way. No, like self-confidence in like using your voice and expressing yourself or asking for your needs to be met, or as like the worth. It's like what the worth is versus the confidence in your body. Because sometimes, like especially in like the fitness world, right, or the health and wellness world, it's feeling confident in your body like can be the solution to everything. Sometimes it's placed in that way as well. So cool. what's your take on that?
Yeah. So totally, I've been through such a transformation. Like if you search on Mum-Leap, you probably would have seen, what I've done to my body. And I've always believed in when you do a transformation on your body and your body shape changes, that your mind transforms at the same time. Interesting enough though, when I went to my absolute hardest and did this amazing, the last transformation that I did a couple of years ago, so it would have been like 2 years ago now. I looked like absolutely amazing, best I've ever felt, best I've ever looked, all that kind of thing, health, skin, inside out kind of thing. But I thought that would solve my problem of self-worth and being confident strutting around in bikinis or strutting around in clothes. Yet as soon as I stopped doing this like very structured program of the eating and of the training, and I went on holidays, I still had this same thought and lack of self-confidence. And then as soon as I ate something that wasn't in my plan, I felt bloated. I felt bigger than what I actually was. I had to take pictures of myself to actually tell myself that this is what you actually look like. Whereas I went through a body dysmorphia state, and I'm only just getting back on track with that.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Like that's huge. And that's a really powerful realization for you to have about yourself as well, especially in the work that you're in, like, because it goes to show, yes, both are important, but like one can sometimes exist without the other, and one's not a catch-all or a solve-all for.
It doesn't solve all your problems. No.
Yeah. That's
so
really
you've still got to
cool.
work on what's going on in your heart. As well, and being okay with like, also working on yourself, but also going, okay, I am enough. I do eat really well. Give myself that balance. You have to find that balance. And so I'm going through that now. The last couple of years I've been going through that, like I wouldn't get extreme and be overweight. But I have to swing. It's like swinging back and forth. I'm not going to be extreme either. Like I don't have any interest in going back to that extreme for a long time.
Yeah.
So I've got to find this middle ground.
Yeah, and that's also like a testament to you practicing that self-worth also, which then ripples out, because it's like, I think it's awesome when people, like if they choose to focus on their bodies like in a healthy way, if they choose to focus on their bodies as their gateway into what feels confident and what feels worthy for them, great, like amazing. It's just like it doesn't end there. And don't be afraid of the deeper work, because the deeper work is the real transformation. You're just, you're just getting yourself there. But
that end of the 12 weeks is not the end.
and
it's funny because you kind of think that it is, and then you're just going to stay like this, and it's like, no, you're not actually going to stay like that. So then you have to deal with the fact that your body, the mind, I don't want to swear, but you get what I'm saying.
Go for
the
it.
mind, you have to then deal with that, and that's cool. Like I do not regret it, and I didn't do it in an unhealthy way. I did it in a really, really healthy way, where you eat more every time you feel shift came on, and you ate really highly nutritious foods. You just cut out the eating out. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
So it was fantastic, but that's not also sustainable. Like you do that for a period of time, and then you have to do the work to find that middle ground and find out who you are without doing a prep.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of like the natural progression from that starting point. But I think it's really cool and really important that you share that part of your work too. Like it's really cool that you do that, because it's missed sometimes in other, like from in the general fitness world, like it can be missed and misunderstood, and then like it creates this almost crisis of confidence after the fact, because people are like, what the hell, why don't I feel like confident, or why don't I feel good, or like shit, what do I do?
Exactly. And then you start becoming, and it's a dangerous field, because you can then start to be so self-obsessed. And then I'm like, I don't want my mind like this, and I don't want my girls' minds like this. So, and that's why I've done the work, but I've never actually stood up on stage, because I wanted to show my girls that you do not have to go up on stage and have judges define you and tell you whether you're better than that one next to you and all that kind of thing. Like, I did the work for me, and for me to get in the healthiest state, and for me to push the envelope, and for me to get outside my comfort zone. So then my clients would respect me, because like, I was already where they want to be. So for me to influence them, and for them to be inspired by me, I had to push the envelope of my limits and understand what they're going through when they're trying to get outside their comfort zone and apply what I'm teaching them.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up too, because it's leading from the inside out, and we kind of, as leaders in our own like worlds, like, you know, in our own industries, in our own businesses, there is an element of vulnerability in a way, like stepping into that and going, okay, I'm just going to show up, because I know that the people who are finding me are needing this, and they don't necessarily know to ask for it, or, you know, like, or they're scared because they need someone to tell them it's safe to talk about it.
Yes, exactly. Like, and say that, yes, what you're doing is hard. And then what I'm doing is hard that's my hard, you know, choose your hard.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If I'm expecting them to do their hard, I need to do my hard too.
One of my mentors, like, my mentors always say, like, you can only take others as deep as you take yourself.
Yes.
And that's just and that's
and I never wanted to be one of those trainers to be like, okay, well, you do this, and you do this, and you do this, but then I'm not actually doing it myself. Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh my God, I love this conversation so much. Before I forget, how can people find you and follow you and your work?
Okay, so on Instagram, I am at Mumlete, so Mumlete. So he's just like Peter's dad Lee, and he did mention that he went away from it for a little while. But
I think they're the best handles. They're so good.
Well, I am totally Mumlete, and that's what I want to be. Every damn day of my life, I am a mum, and I'm an athlete in motherhood.
Yeah, I love that so much. So they can follow you on Instagram. I love that so much. Oh, thank you so much, Megan, for sharing parts of your story and for getting vulnerable. It's powerful, because that's what tells us all that it is safe to go through our journeys and know that there's, like, you know, lights at the end of the tunnel and people around us and all of the things. So
highs and lows, and ride the waves. I hope I shared enough, and I hope I got
it's great.
I got what you were looking for.
Oh no, I just wanted to hear your story, so thank you so much. I loved it so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.